Hello, 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 Jordan Sheridan. I am live on Periscope. I believe I am live on YouTube. I think. Let's check. Hold on. Always fun trying to go live on the interweb to 3 places at once. Hold on. Do-do-do. All right, I am live on YouTube. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I am about to go live on Facebook as well. Let's do that. Go live. 3, 2, 1. Wonderful, wonderful. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. And to my Jewish brethren, Happy Yom Kippur. I don't know if you say Happy Yom Kippur because it's a day of atonement. I will be going to my brother's tonight. My father won't be mad at me that I'm working today. My father is quite the observant, religious Jewish man. But have to work. What can I do? Trying to launch a company, so every day, gotta work. But busy in the news. We covered yesterday the Brett Kavanaugh
religious
things going on. And apparently now the woman accusing him, Christine Ford, has said she wants there to be an FBI investigation before she testifies. I actually understand where she's coming from, but of course she's being attacked by. Now it seems the media is starting to say, well, you know, she should testify without an investigation. So I'm going to get to that a little bit later, I think. And there's other stuff that's not getting covered. Shocker, not getting covered. It happens to be the 10-year anniversary of the global financial meltdown, brought to you by the government, the banks, the lobbyists, and the whole revolving door of this country that essentially played house money with your money. And I keep hearing that the economy is booming. I keep hearing that everything's dandy, that people are now recovered from that. But then when I actually speak with actual human beings and American citizens, they say, no, that's not true, I'm struggling. No, I'm moving rent, paycheck to paycheck. No, my 401k is still, I've lost thousands of dollars. No, I never got my house back. That was foreclosed on. So I'd love to hear your stories today once I get to that. Matt Taibbi of Rolling Stone, who I think is the best journalist as far as covering the banks and the actual truth, did a really great piece debunking the myths that the media, the propaganda that the media has put out there about the financial crash. It's propaganda like you wouldn't believe the media has put out, making these people like Henry Paulson, the former Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, another former Treasury Secretary, you know, these heroes when they are not heroes. So we're going to cover that. And also I did an interview with a journalist who was, again, second time, arrested on the ground covering the Bayou Bridge pipeline. So I'm going to play that for you. As a reminder, this is a super chat on YouTube. If you're feeling super, let me know if you're feeling super. You could leave contributions there in the super chat. And I wouldn't be talking about my birthday if I wasn't trying to get support to launch Status Coup. So today is not my birthday, tomorrow is my birthday. To give you a little update, and I'll be popping this up throughout the broadcast today, we are at, let's see here, what are we at as far as oh, I didn't put the image in. Hold on one second, let me put the image in. We have, sorry folks, give me a second. Should have done this first. We got the GoFundMe. So there's the image. Gotta drop it in. I don't have like a director while I'm live, so I have to do everything myself. But better to be independent and have to take these extra steps. GoFund. One second. Me. Image. GoFundMe. So we're at 35, a little over $3,500, as you can see right there. that is in 7 days. So not too shabby. 3,500. We're trying to raise 50,000 for actual reporting. I know, what a concept to get out in the field. We covered a little bit yesterday some of the things we want to cover out in the field, including going down to the Bayou Bridge, covered the Bayou Bridge pipeline. Like I said, I interviewed a journalist. I'm going to play that for you today, as well as other things. So definitely thank you for the, what are we at? 51 people have raised $3,500 in 7 days. I am not naive. I don't think we're going to raise 50,000 by tomorrow. But even if we could get to 4,000, 5,000, it'd be a nice little birthday gift. I'm turning 32 tomorrow, so 32 years young, and I appreciate those who have contributed and those who can. Definitely, even if it's $5, you could leave it. Here's the link to the GoFundMe. Oh, that's not the link to the GoFundMe. Oy vey. Hold on. Let me get the link. GoFundMe. Doo-doo-doo. Sorry, I'm doing all this on the fly. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay. So there's the link to the GoFundMe, and whoever is, I'll put it in throughout. So thank you. Again, you could leave via Super Chat or GoFundMe. So I want to start. Now, if you're not aware, the Washington MacArthur thought I was 50. You think I'm 50 years old? I mean, I feel like 50. Just so you know. Let me recap my year 31 for you, because I do feel like I'm 50, MacArthur. So, year 31. Let's keep it real, right? And for those of you watching on Facebook, definitely share this video. Facebook is suppressing the hell out of me, so definitely share the video. But year 31, okay? Got to keep it real. Fired from my job, so that was something. Then my back went to all hell, and I had to get back surgery March 1st. Thankfully, definitely feeling a lot better. I've been doing physical therapy, but feeling a lot better. So fired, back surgery, all in the span of 3 months. And then in March, we started coming up with the idea for Status Coup, which we are going to be launching the website and the company in October. The site is pretty much done, and we're just waiting on a few things to launch right. So basically, year 31 was definitely some tumultuous events happened, both professionally as well as health-wise. But I see only exciting things coming for year 32. I hope. I can't take any more negative. So I forgot. Oh my God, I skipped. I got arrested year 31. I got fired year 31, and then I had back surgery. But now we are launching this company, and I'm starting to feel good. So definitely looking forward to 32. So if you're not familiar, the Washington Post, which, you know, corporate media, establishment, brought you Watergate, which obviously they deserve tons of credit back in the day for. But the Washington Post is the main competitor for the New York Times. And who owns the Washington Post? Who owns the Washington Post? That would be Amazon and Jeff Bezos. To me, Amazon and Jeff Bezos, you know, you could make an argument. They make things easier for all of us. I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, use Amazon for convenience for a lot of things. But Amazon has also been a machete to small business. Amazon has been a machete to retail mom and pop shops, and Amazon has essentially made the media portrays them as really innovative and all that, basically by having horrendous working conditions for their workers and paying their workers dirt cheap. So basically, so that you could get, you know, a workout band or whatever the hell people are ordering from Amazon. Got to take a break. Zachary Kirkpatrick, thank you so much. Zachary just contributed to the GoFundMe, $150. What a birthday present. And by the way, just so you know, when you contribute $100, you get a shirt or a hat. And if you contribute $127, you get both a shirt and a hat. And that is the Status Coup shirt and hat. I should have worn my hat today. So Zachary, you'll be getting a shirt and a hat. Thank you so much for the 150. And again, we're trying to get this GoFundMe going so we can get back in the field and get things moving. Again, here's the link. When you click on the link, you can see the story wish list that we're trying to cover. I'm not just telling you, send me money so I can sit here on my behind. We want to get in the field. We would be myself. We would be Ty. Jen is going to be going in the field also. So a lot of things in the works here. So Washington Post obviously is owned by Amazon. And Jeff Bezos has been under mass. He's going to get in a beating from one Bernie Sanders over the last few months. Bernie Sanders, his Twitter account, his Facebook account, has been going after Jeff Bezos, rightly so, because Jeff Bezos is... You know how much money Jeff Bezos makes a day? Jeff Bezos is making $200 million a day. A day. He's making, I think the quote was $64,000 every 10 seconds. Okay? So Jeff Bezos doing wonderfully. Wonderfully. The Amazon worker, not so great. So you would think the Washington Post, if they're going to write about Bernie Sanders, and it's not just Bernie Sanders along with Congressman Ro Khanna, pretty progressive guy, had put forward the Bezos Act a few weeks ago, which essentially is a very common sense thing, says, okay, Amazon, if you want to pay your workers under a living wage, so a lot of most Amazon workers are part-time, so they're not making full-time wages. If you want to pay your workers basically under the amount that they need to live, and they then have to go on food stamps, or they then have to go on Medicaid, or they need to go on subsidized housing, well, the taxpayer should not be paying for Jeff Bezos to not pay his workers. It's a very simple concept. Democrats should be for it, and Republicans should be for it. Everybody should be against welfare, especially corporate welfare. Because why is it that Amazon's workers have to go on food stamps and Medicaid? Not because Jeff Bezos and Amazon aren't making enough money to pay them a living wage, because they don't want to, because greed runs this country. Think about the week we are in. Think about this week. I know you're not seeing it on CNN. I know you're not seeing it on MSNBC. I know you're not seeing it much in the New York Times. This week is the 10-year anniversary of the global financial crash, brought to you by the United Corporations of America, aka the big banks who are bought off our government. It's normalized. 10-year anniversary, the banks are still too big to fail, all that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. That's my next story. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Thank you. So, what I find so striking, you would think Washington Post might have a conflict of interest if they're going to write a piece about Bernie Sanders' plan to tax people like Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Don't you think the Washington Post maybe should sit that one out if you're an actual journalistic outfit? I think they should. Or if you're going to write a piece or an opinion piece about, criticizing Bernie Sanders and saying this plan isn't right, should you also have a voice saying this plan is right? Again, Bernie Sanders' plan is to make Jeff Bezos, the Walmart, and other companies like it, fast food companies, if your workers work full-time and still have to go on government assistance, you're paying for it. So I want to read you this story from the Washington Post. And I hate spending time criticizing the corporate media. I know I do a lot, but it must be done. Because this kind of propaganda is exactly why people like Trump are elected. This kind of propaganda is why people get the wrong impression about a candidate like Bernie Sanders, which we saw throughout the 2016 primary. Washington Post, 16 stories a day in one day negative about Bernie Sanders. And by the way, guys, press the share button. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. So let me read this piece, because honestly, I've read a lot of bad journalism in my day. I've certainly read a lot of bad journalism this year. And I've certainly read some bad stuff by me in my earlier days when I didn't have enough experience. This is probably the worst piece I've ever read, or at least this year. So this is from the Washington Post. Headline: Bernie Sanders' first step to democratic socialism, privatizing it. So right there in the headline, what the hell is the Washington Post talking about? When you hear Bernie Sanders, do you hear privatization? Does he propose anything that comes off like privatization? I don't believe so. Okay, so let's see what the Washington Post is talking about. And as a reminder to those coming into the broadcast late, this is a super chat, and the GoFundMe link is right there. Oh, no, it's not. Let me put the right link in the description box for GoFundMe. I put the wrong link because I'm a silly, silly man. Hold on. So the GoFundMe link is there, and I will put it in the video chat too. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, so let's read this, and I'm going to take breaks to point out the ridiculousness. In an advanced industrial democracy like the United States, who should bear primary responsibility for ensuring an adequate social safety net and a reasonable level of economic equality? Strangely enough, Bernie Sanders, the once and possibly future presidential candidate, thinks that's a job for corporate America. Who would have thought the first step on the road to democratic socialism would be to privatize it? So right there, I got to stop it. Right there, I got to stop here, because that is the propaganda in that first paragraph. And sorry, I'm going to be a little talk like a professor, like read the article, start and stop. First of all, the Bernie Sanders, who should be responsible? Who should be responsible, they say, for the social safety net and a reasonable level of economic equality? And they're saying that Bernie thinks it's corporate America's job to cover the social safety net? No, that's actually not what Bernie Sanders is talking about at all. But because the Washington Post, who, by the way, is literally writing a piece, sorry for my crassness, giving a figurative blowjob to its parent company, Jeff Bezos, and its owner, Jeff Bezos, which is not journalistic at all, it's propaganda. Okay? So that would be like when I was at the Young Turks, if I wrote a piece on how amazing, Cenk Uygur was. Who would believe that? It's, you don't like, or if there was something Cenk was doing or something he was involved with, writing about how amazing it is. No, that's a conflict of interest. Okay, so they're saying that Bernie Sanders thinks corporate America should be responsible for the social safety net. No. Bernie Sanders thinks that if the social safety net is getting more and more fat, if the social safety net is becoming more and more, there's more netting, meaning more people need it, because corporate America is paying its workers starvation wages, then those corporations should pay for those subsidies. Or, novel idea, they should pay their workers enough that they don't have to go on food stamps. Bernie Sanders didn't, and Ro Khanna didn't put forth legislation to say, hey, corporate America, you're doing great. Corporate America should have a 2% tax every year to contribute to Social Security, Medicare, and all those things. That's not what his bill is. He's saying if Amazon and Walmart and McDonald's and Burger King and all these elite companies hoarding money don't want to pay their workers, and as a result their workers have to go on subsidies and food stamps, well, they should pay for it. That's not privatizing the cost. That's actually called accountability. That's what the government is supposed to do. That's called reining in monopolies. That's called reining in antitrust. That's called ending corporate welfare. Thank you, Phil, for that comment. So right there, they're being totally dishonest with their audience. But what do you expect? Because Jeff Bezos Amazon signs their paychecks at the Washington Post. So let me continue. Or so one concludes from reviewing Sanders' proposal to tax large employers, $500 or more, $1 for every dollar their workers and their family members get in means-tested federal benefits such as food stamps or Medicaid. He says the plan would prevent giant corporations run by plutocrats such as Amazon's Jeffrey Bezos, parentheses, owner of the Washington Post. Well, thank you, Washington Post, for admitting you're basically doing a press release for your owner. I mean, this is a press release. It's astounding. From passing the tab for their underpaid employees' well-being to the government. Corporate welfare, Sanders calls it. It's an interesting new role for Sanders, tribune of taxpayer resentment. And it has led to a certain left-right populist fusion, with Tucker Carlson of Fox News echoing the Vermont senator on his show. So this isn't, I'm not interrupting here for a policy point, I'm interrupting here for a bias point. Because as I always say, I don't have a problem with media that has a point of view. I don't have a problem if the Washington Post comes out tomorrow and say, hey, we're for the establishment Democrats, that's who we are. But when you pretend you're not, and then you have lines that are so dripping in bias, look at this line. The Bernie Sanders, where is this? It's an interesting new role for Sanders, tribune of taxpayer resentment. I mean, why don't you just call him Hitler while you're at it? Bernie Sanders is tribune of taxpayer resentment? No, Bernie Sanders is speaking on behalf of the righteous anger of American citizens. By the way, and the working class. By the way, so is Trump. The only difference between Bernie and Trump is Trump didn't mean it, and he was a fake populist, and Bernie's the real deal. So, I continue. Yet as others, including the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a liberal Washington think tank that specializes in poverty-related issues, have pointed out the Sanders plan would be counterproductive, a huge disincentive to hire poor people possessing only entry-level jobs. Because, oh, give me a break. Give me a break. Hold on. And for a poor person with entry-level job skills, the only thing worse than working for $10 an hour at a Walmart and relying on food stamps and Medicaid would be having no job and relying on food stamps and Medicaid. So basically, this sentence, written by the Washington Post on behalf of its owners, is, well, you know, the reason we're paying you starvation wages is because it's an entry-level job. But that's not true, because not all Amazon is an entry-level job. And by the way, guess what? In this new jobless economy that we live in, there's a lot of people with a hell of a lot of experience working at places like Amazon or Walmart that can't get an actual real job. So basically, this sentence right here is telling you, well, you know, tough shit. Tough shit. And for a poor person with entry-level job skills, the only thing worse than working for $10 an hour at a Walmart and relying on food stamps and Medicaid would be having no job and relying on food stamps and Medicaid. And I want to get to the psychology of the corporate media and the Washington Post, because this is critically important. And this is part of the reason we've had neoliberal rule for so long, because we have neoliberal media. They're saying, well, we have to do everything we can for the corporations to be able to compete. We have to do everything we can for Jeff Bezos and the Walton family to do well. So we need to offer them workers that will make $10 an hour so they could make the necessary profits. That's exactly why Bernie Sanders took off in 2016. That is why you have seen a progressive uprising over the last few months and years since 2016, because Bernie Sanders talks about the moral economy, that in a capitalist system, sure. Bernie Sanders doesn't say he's against corporations and people like Jeff Bezos making money. If you work hard, you should be able to make money. That's not what he's saying. He's saying there's a limit. He's saying you should not make $266 million a day. You should not make $64,000 an hour if it means that your workers are not going to be able to feed themselves and their family. That's called the moral economy. But the Washington Post story basically says, well, if Bernie Sanders' plan went through, what that means is corporations they're not gonna hire these low-wage workers, because then they would have to pay for their subsidies. Yeah, that's the point. So they if they're not going to hire them, in order not to pay for the subsidies, guess what? You move them up to $15 an hour. I mean, this isn't complicated, but the Washington Post is basically saying, well, that would be a burden to the corporations. That would be a non-starter for Amazon to hire these workers. And then they wouldn't actually have jobs, and they'd have to solely rely on food stamps. So really what you're saying is, we don't want to burden Amazon. We don't want to burden Walmart. We don't want to make it so they can't hire. That's the sickness. That's the sick mentality. They can hire them at higher wages and still make hordes and hordes of sickening amounts of money. They can afford to do it. They are greedy, and this economy and country is based on social Darwinism and greed, so they don't want to. Jeff Bezos doesn't want to pay his workers a living wage. His shareholders don't care about the workers, because somewhere along the American psyche, we went from we're in this together, which I would argue was more the 1950s and 60s, to tough shit. This is the Hunger Games. Deal with it. And that's basically what the Washington Post is saying. I mean, this line, I'll read it one more time. It's astounding. It's absolutely astounding. And for a poor person with entry-level job skills, the only thing worse than working for $10 an hour at a Walmart and relying on food stamps and Medicaid would be having no job and relying on food stamps and Medicaid. Well, so basically you are telling, the Washington Post in that sentence is basically telling it's propaganda, by the way, because not all Amazon workers are entry-level workers. A lot of them are older people who have had plenty of jobs and plenty of experience. Basically what you're telling them is, well, Jeff, greed is good. Corporations are allowed to do whatever they want. Corporations should hoard money, and Jeff Bezos should make as much money as humanly possible, because we don't care about human dignity in this country. We at the Washington Post, the writer probably makes a hell of a lot of money and has great health care and all those, because this is the coastal elites. That's why the media is so sick. That's why we're launching Status Quo, because we want to give the microphone back to the people. But this is basically saying, well, Jeff Bezos and them, it's a burden if they have to actually pay their workers more. So for the worker, deal with it. Because would you rather $10 an hour and have to have a little subsidy? Or would you rather $10 an hour with no subsidies? Oh, excuse me. Would you rather $10 an hour with a little subsidy? Or would you rather no job? So it's basically the mentality of this Washington Post is eat shit. Eat shit. Zachary, this article is pure 100% chutzpah. I would say it's 100% chutzpah and 20%. No, actually, I'd say it's 90%. How do I do the ratio? I'd say it's 60% chutzpah and 40% propaganda. How about that? I couldn't believe it when I read it. Besides the fact that it's total conflict of interest, they're basically writing a press release and an impassioned plea for their owner, Jeff Bezos. I don't want to hear that the Washington Post, what do they say? Their tagline, democracy dies in the darkness. Well, democratic systems, you want to call Russia TV an organ of the state for Russia? What the hell do you call this? This is literally writing a hit piece on Bernie Sanders and putting out facts that don't even make sense because they're not facts, basically to blow your owner. I mean, that's what this piece is. So, here we go. If there's a taxpayer subsidy going to the Walmarts and Amazons of the world, it is also a subsidy to their lower income customers because holding down labor costs enables them to sell goods more cheaply. Oh my God. All right, let me repeat. They are not, this is not, look, holding down labor costs enables them to sell goods more cheaply? No. It allows them to hoard more profits, sell goods more cheaply. Let me tell you something, okay? If today Jeff Bezos across the board made all his workers at $15 an hour with decent benefits, okay? And Amazon, let's say they want to raise their price by 20 cents for everything. Some items more. Guess what? It would be negligible because people would have more money in their pockets. Guess what? Those workers probably wouldn't have to be on food stamps anymore because they're making $15 an hour. And don't get me wrong. $15 an hour, in my opinion, is too small, but you got to crawl before you can walk. So they're basically saying, oh, well, Amazon has to pay their workers slave labor because then they would have to raise the prices. No, if you raise the minimum wage, if you raise the Amazon workers, yeah, more people would have more money in their pockets. It's not complicated, but the Washington Post doesn't want their workers to. The Washington Post doesn't want the American people, especially Democrats, to actually look at facts and common sense. Thank you, Squirrel Lips, $1.99 in the super chat. Appreciate it. As a reminder, this is a super chat. If you're feeling super, it is my birthday tomorrow. I'm going to be live for my birthday too, but, early birthday party, super chat. We're definitely hoping more people contribute to the GoFundMe. We had somebody contribute, Zachary, $150 while I was live, so thank you. Super chat, GoFundMe, keep it coming. So I want to read just a little bit more because I'm just astounded this was even printed. So they're saying that if there's a taxpayer subsidy, there is a taxpayer subsidy going to Walmart and Amazon. We are paying for their workers to have food stamps and Medicaid and subsidized housing so that Jeff Bezos could make $64,000 in 10 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guess what? You just paid so Jeff Bezos could make $64,000. Not being dramatic, that's the truth. That is the truth. So, despite liberal criticism of it, Sanders' proposal is only a political, edgier version of the progressive push to attack income inequality through increased regulation of employers, whether by replacing tipping for restaurant workers with a higher one-size-fits-all minimum wage, quote, living wage requirements for government contractors, employer mandates for health insurance, or mandatory vacation and sick leave. There should be clear, broadly applicable minimum standards to prevent a race to the bottom in the labor market. Holy shit. And I'm not going to make you nauseous reading any more of this, but I want to make the point on this. Okay, so the progressive push to attack inequality through increased regulation of employers. Well, since the Washington Post apparently does not employ people who took economics or know about American history, let me give you a little lesson, Washington Post. So in the 1950s and the 1960s, the American economy was its most equal in history. Okay? Part of that was the post-World War II boom, but you want to know what the main reason that income inequality was fairly low? And that the average CEO made like 10 to 15 times more than their worker, not 250 to 300 times their average worker, and that parents and families could have 2 cars, one parent could work, another one they could take maybe a vacation once a year or so. Why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Let me highlight. Let me highlight this. Regulation of employers through labor unions. Employers had to pay a certain amount because either there was a union contract that said so, or private employers that didn't want their workers to push for a union matched the union rate. It's not complicated. So when you actually do, oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, I'm sorry, Bill Walton, put some rules and regulation on employers that actually make them have to treat their workers with human dignity, pay them and care about them so that they could feed their family and themselves, have heating in their home during the winter, have health care. Guess what? You have a more equal economy. But apparently the Washington Post doesn't understand that they say to attack inequality, not even understanding that the inequality is because we don't have these regulation of employers. And I'm sure they actually do understand this, but choose to be dumb about it. So, if you've eaten lunch and you're not on an empty stomach, I'm putting the link in the chat here. Putting the link in the chat. That's the Washington Post, but I got it off a separate site. It's an article written by the Washington Post, but I got it off a separate site. Read that. It's astounding. And the reason I am reading that, the reason I'm even covering it, is because this type of propaganda, you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. Especially if Bernie Sanders runs. But even if Elizabeth Warren runs, even if it's an actual progressive, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they are elites. They don't want the truth out there. They don't want common sense out there. They don't want the economic realities of the majority of Americans out there. That's why they are promoting this fallacy and this nonsense about, oh, the economy's booming and it's humming and all this nonsense. It is nonsense. It is not booming, I can promise you. So I will keep calling out the Washington Post, and I will keep calling out propaganda. Now, if Bernie Sanders put forward a policy that I thought had holes in it, I would say so. But I think this policy is right on the money. And you know what? I don't, the criticism to it has been, well, if this actually went through, then you're jeopardizing low-income workers, because then Amazon won't be likely to pay and hire them if they have to pay for their food stamps. Enough. We don't need to fetishize business in this country to the point we do. What about the workers? Why are we so worried about, oh, it's a burden to Amazon and they'll have to make a little less, money. So you're jeopardizing, they won't want to hire these workers if they have to pay their subsidies. Fuck Amazon and fuck Jeff Bezos and fuck the Waltons. No, we should be saying, well, because Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Walmart, Burger King, McDonald's, they got so rich and successful because of the conditions in this country. So here's the solution. Let's not talk about it in a way, well, they won't hire these lower income workers because they don't want to pay for their food stamps and subsidies. How about this? Well, they don't have to pay for their food stamps, Medicaid subsidies if they just raise their wages. If they make, let's say they make $10 billion less a year. Is that really going to kill you? Is that going to kill Jeff Bezos? So that's the propaganda going on with the Washington Post. And Bernie Sanders has obviously been on the receiving end forever, but it's astounding to me, I get criticized sometimes, Jimmy gets criticized sometimes, a lot of progressive media get criticized sometimes as not real journalists because we're biased. What the hell do you call that? At least I'm honest about my views. They don't change the facts that I report, but at least I'm honest about my views. That was a shameful story. So, share this video. Let's get it out to as many people as we can. I want to play you, I want to get to this next. As you know, I've been covering the Bayou Bridge pipeline. I wish I could get down there. That's in part why we're launching the GoFundMe in the first place, because we want to go cover these critical stories. So, the Bayou Bridge pipeline is the final piece of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Energy Transfer Partners, which was the evil, greedy, filthy oil company in charge of the owner of the Dakota Access Pipeline, they also own the Bayou Bridge Pipeline. And that's why we launched the GoFundMe, in part because we want to go cover that story and many others. So let me get the link one more time. If you are a viewer a little late to the party, hold on. What will be, will be. Jen, I am live now. You're on speakerphone. What would you like to tell the audience?
I would like to tell the audience that I found a really great spot, but I can't parallel park it, and I've been trying very hard.
Well, I cannot abandon the audience while I'm live, so you're going to have to keep trying, or I'll
I'm going to try to find like a kindly old man walking by who will do it for me.
Okay. I'll try to help you when I get off if you're still there.
Bye.
Bye. So, Bayou Bridge Pipeline obviously has been going on for quite some time, and they're arresting water protectors who are on private land that they have permission from the landowners to be on. Energy Transfer Partners, the oil company, doesn't have permission to be on this land. So, you see what I'm saying? Private land. The landowners have given water protectors demonstrating against the pipeline, a crude oil pipeline that is actually being used for foreign exports, not U.S. energy or energy independence. The oil company doesn't have permission from these landowners. A judge last week implemented an injunction. So the oil company, Energy Transfer Partners, and its mercenaries in private security cannot even go on this land or build parts of the pipeline on this private property. Well, guess what? Journalist Karen Savage, as well as another water protector, were arrested yesterday. This is Karen's second time being arrested while on property she has the permission to be on. I just spoke with Karen before I went live. Let me play you that interview. Karen, this image is a little fuzzy, but this was off her Facebook, so let me play you.
You got arrested again?
Yes.
Can you?
Yeah, you're correct.
Can you share what happened?
I can a little bit. I'm kind of working on a deadline for a different story right now. Can I call you back in a little while? I was basically, I can give you a summary.
Sure.
Is we were on our way to a protest. The water protest in Texas. I told me where it was. I rode over there, got to the boat ramp, and they alleged that they had a warrant for my arrest.
Who's that?
The St. Mark Parish Sheriff's deputies.
Okay.
But the ironic thing is, the night before, I'd been pulled over for I was riding a vehicle that had a broken taillight. No problems whatsoever. They ran all of our licenses, took all of our ID, and all of the stuff they were supposed to do. Nothing out of the ordinary came back. It was a broken taillight, a routine thing. Everybody was like, oh, we went home, went on our way. So there was no warrant in the system then, right?
So what did they say they had a warrant for your arrest for?
For the stuff that happened on September 3rd. They say that I went on the easement and grabbed Cherie at one point when they were trying to arrest her, and as I was taking pictures of her, I apparently grabbed her and dragged her off the easement, which is a pretty interesting feat because I only have 2 hands. But anyway, there was nothing in the system as of 12 hours before that they arrested me yesterday. On top of that, when they started arresting me, some of the people, there's a bail bondsman that they usually use. They want to call this person who called the deputies, the sheriff's department, and they're like, no, we have nothing in the system for this person. So, I don't even know what was going on, but it's ridiculous. The bottom line is they did not want a camera there for what they thought they were about to do. That's the bottom line. They took out me, and then they grabbed Ian Whitehat, who is she had just done a prayer ceremony.
Uh-huh.
So they targeted people specifically, and then they just arrested us.
And for the September 3rd one, you were on the property that there's permission for, so have they explained yet what specifically they're arresting people for? If Energy Transfer Partners doesn't have permission to be there and the water protectors and you do?
That's exactly the thing. They haven't. They arrested me and charged me with that felony, whatever they call it, unauthorized entry of a critical infrastructure, which, of course, there is no critical infrastructure if they don't have the company trespassed when they built that.
Right.
They didn't have permission to be there. Anytime they go on that land, there's trespassing. In fact, the court decision last week, there was an agreement entered into by Energy Transfer Partners, of course, because they know their work is mostly done.
Right.
Or maybe they even think it's done as looks the best, but they might consider it done.
Right.
So, but they are the ones that operated illegally. I was there as well as water protectors with the legal permission of a landowner, of several landowners. There was nothing illegal. The court actually, that was the agreement.
Right.
The court agreed to that. And so then I go back, and now not only, before the agreement, all right, it was shady, but it wasn't like this. This is just pure, straight up harassment.
And yesterday, where were you arrested and the water protector arrested?
On a boat ramp, because we were on the way to they did a prayer ceremony. I think what they were going to eventually do is just like an action on the water with some banners and stuff like that, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't, from what I understand, I'm not privy to everything. As a reporter, I know enough to get out there and report the story and can see what happens for myself. But from what I understand, it wasn't going to be anything. I don't think anyone even ever got off of those.
But what I don't understand is they arrested you. So what is the warrant for your arrest? They arrested you on the 3rd and they let you go. So what are they?
No. They arrested me on the 18th of August.
Okay.
And they let me go. And they arrested me on the 18th for allegedly trespassing on critical infrastructure on the 18th.
Right.
Even though I was not even on the part of that property where they're building the pipeline.
Right.
So they arrested me. I was released on bond. They let me go. I heard nothing from them. I've heard nothing from the DA. I have no new court date, nothing from that situation. And then fast forward to yesterday. I had gone to that property because, as you know, I still had permission, and the court has decided, in the meantime, the court has decided that the work will stop because it is a dispute. But regardless of the dispute, there is permission from several landowners to be on the property. In fact, one of the landowners comments on the camp Facebook page like, hey, justice will prevail, the truth will, keep doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So they arrested me yesterday not for anything that happened yesterday, but for something that happened on September 3rd, the day before Cherie Foytland and some other water protectors were arrested. I have video on my Facebook page that got like 30,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that's why they arrested me. Because they don't want any more pictures of the violence that they're inflicting, the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Office is inflicting on non-violent water protectors who are exercising their First Amendment right.
Right.
That's the bottom line. They're out there protesting that pipeline on property where they have permission to be, exercising their First Amendment rights, and those cops, those deputies are going in aggressively and violently and attacking them. And they know that I was out there the other day. They know I put pictures up. They know that I'm not about to stop reporting on this. I reported on the workers came by the other day flipping off the white supremacy symbols or things that are associated. So that's a thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna just let it pass. I'm a reporter. I'm doing my job. But they targeted me because they did not want me to continue. When I was in the police car, they were talking about sending boats to bring in 6 water protectors at a time. Right? I don't know what they had planned. They did never do that. They only arrested 2 people yesterday. But the talk was of mass arrests.
And
what they didn't want was they didn't want cameras there. So they arrested me first.
Are the landowners going public that they're giving permission?
Oh yeah, the landowners. So the easement, the agreement that was entered into last Monday, I think it was because one of the landowners, Peter Nestat, I think I mispronounced his name, but anyway, Peter, had filed an injunction. And it was an injunction hearing. And before the judge could decide that Energy Transfer Partner should stop working, Energy Transfer Partner said, oh, yeah, maybe we should stop working. But the whole time, the whole reason they were so upset and that they were so rude to Cherie and the other people they arrested that day was because they knew that they were about to enter into that agreement. They knew they had to finish that work because once they entered into that agreement, they would not legally be able to, they would be like double illegally working, if that's even a thing.
Right. Gotcha. So it sounds to me like they're essentially they don't really, it doesn't even sound like they actually have a warrant for your arrest. They just are making stuff up as they go along.
That's what it sounds like. Now, they gave somebody a number, and they did show me some paperwork, but what it actually looks like to me is they took a police report from that day, and I heard them reading it, and it's just a general, like, what happened? And then at the end, they said, oh, and Karen Savage went up on the easement to pull Cherie Foytland off of the easement and to take pictures. That's what's there for under mine. Now, for Ann Whitehead, they had the very same narrative, but with a little sentence change to describe what they say she did.
Right. Gotcha.
And so, to me, it sounds like they took a police report from that day, tacked on a couple sentences, and said, who can we arrest first? They saw me coming. They know me by name because I've been covering this thing for God knows how many months. They saw me coming. They saw my camera. They said, oh, no, we don't want pictures of this. Let's take her out. I have no doubt they had that plan from the time they woke up yesterday morning until the time they had me in the back of a police car.
Right. And is this arrest yesterday another felony charge?
Yep.
Okay. I've been recording this just for my notes. Is it okay if I use it?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, you got me worked up and I just kept talking, so yeah, that's fine. You were really good to me last time, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna, during my live stream, I'll play a little bit of this. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
So there you have it. That is a journalist covering the pipeline resistance down there. And by the way, while I was live, while I was playing that, my Yeti mic broke. So let me know if you could hear me, because my mic broke. I'm gonna have to order a new one, unfortunately. The audio is probably not as good because I don't have a working microphone. But she's hard to understand, Jordan. Could you explain more of what's going on with her? Sure. So Karen is one of the few journalists down there. She's an independent journalist. She's done work on, she did a lot of work down at BP, Deepwater Horizon explosion. So basically, she is covering, they have a floating resistance camp. So it's a water protectors camp. A lot of their actions start with them kayaking and things like that. They are doing what indigenous and environmental activists have been doing more so since Standing Rock. They are resisting peacefully. But because of new laws pushed through by ALEC, the Legislative Council, which is a hard right lobbyist group, basically they are making it so You could arrest water protectors and now apparently journalists and charge them with felonies. She has 2 felony charges because this is the second time she has been arrested for literally demonstrating peacefully or covering it. What they're trying to do, as she was talking about, is intimidate journalists to not go down there and cover what's going on because they don't want the cameras down there. They don't want photos. They don't want reporting that shows them brutalizing indigenous people, them brutalizing environmental activists, and them breaking the law. Reminder, if you came to this late, the water protectors and journalists like Karen have permission to be on the land that they are demonstrating on and reporting on. She's not an activist down there. She's open that she's against the pipeline, but she is reporting. She is bringing facts. She is reaching out to both sides and all that stuff. So I'm covering this because A, I'm not down there, which I would like to be, but B, this is not what the First Amendment allows, or this is against the First Amendment. You can't arrest journalists for doing their job. She's not breaking any laws. Like she said, the landowners have publicly, and I'm trying to get a hold of landowners so I could interview them. The landowners have given Karen and the water protectors permission to be down there, not the oil company. When I say down there, on their property. On their property. So you want to talk about Russia and the Russian boogeyman threat to democracy? Are you kidding me? This is our democracy being spit on. This is our so-called democracy basically exposing that we don't have one. So basically, you have police creating the law as they go because they're not following the law. If they were following the law, they would say, the oil company, you can't be on this land. And they would leave the water protectors alone. Now, if water protectors want to, like we saw in Standing Rock, chain themselves to construction machines or put their body, on pipeline material or construction material, okay, that's fair game for them to be arrested. And they know that going into it, that they're going to be arrested. But that's not what we're talking about. They're arresting her, a journalist, for taking photos, taking video on land she's allowed to be in. Of course, you're not going to see this in the corporate media because they don't give a damn about some pipeline. CNN has advertisements from the American Petroleum Institute, for God's sakes. But this is dangerous. Very dangerous. Because the bottom line is, fascist countries, part of what makes you a fascist country is censorship. Censorship brought on by the corporate and government partnership. Well, what do you call government? That would be the police. They're paid, taxpayers pay their salaries, partnering with an oil company to arrest journalists and arrest people exercising the First Amendment peacefully. That's fascism. We saw it in Standing Rock, and we're seeing it down here. So kudos to Karen. Her name is Karen Savage. I'll put a link when we make this a shorter video on demand. I'll put a link to her Facebook page so you could like her page and follow her updates there. By the way, as a separate topic, I saw in the little live chat while we were playing that, somebody, let me find it, somebody mentioned, we tune in to, oh wait, Jordan, let's get something straight right here and now, exclamation point. Yes, we want real news, but no way in hell can we afford what you want to do. You want to travel more than the rest of us. This is your thing, not ours. Earthy48 Johnson says. So let me straighten the record, Earthy48 Johnson, and to anyone wondering. Okay, so for an actual independent media company, there is the long-term business model, and there is getting enough funding to get off the ground, right? So those are two separate things. The actual long-term business model is not GoFundMe and not, asking people for donations. This is not a charity. The business model, long-term, is actually getting in the field, reporting on things no one else is reporting on, having a lot of stuff for free, having some stuff that's just for paid members, and also trying to get sponsorship deals, not with big corporations, but with small businesses, with progressive-minded companies. Think of Ben & Jerry's, think of Patagonia, those kinds of things. Sponsorships that brings in revenue. We're also thinking about reporting specific sponsorship ideas from individuals. So we will have a paid member platform, as well as a sponsorship platform, as well as podcasts which bring in revenue. So we have many, many revenue ideas. So we're not going to be having the main way of funding reporting, especially in the field, is not going to be like GoFundMe. So that's the long-term business model. And by the way, if anyone watching has launched a startup, you learn things as you go. So it might dawn on us other ideas for revenue, right? So that's the macro, big picture, earthy. The immediate short term is you need something to get out there, right? You need money to go out there. I firmly believe, because it happened at the Young Turks, when you get out there covering things that nobody else is covering, when you expose certain organizations, agencies, corporations, government officials, you know what? People want to subscribe to that. People want to pay membership fees for that. You might pay for Netflix per month. You might pay for other outlets per month. You might have other things you subscribe to per month. It would be no different than that, because you're getting certain content that you're willing to pay for. That's how business works. Back in the day, you could have free media. Unfortunately, now you can't have free real media. But this GoFundMe, this isn't a long-term, like we're going to be doing, 20 GoFundMes a year. This is a GoFundMe for the launch of our company, because Ty and I need to get back in the field to start producing that kind of journalism that then we could build up our membership, our paid membership. And then once we have the numbers, because hey, this channel in just 6 months is almost at 17,000 subscribers. That's a good trajectory. Our website is going to be launched in October, and we will be going live on our website and doing things on our website most of the time. So we are going to be able to go and show potential sponsors, whether it be small mom and pops, progressive companies, those kinds of things. So don't worry about it, Earthy. Our business model is not to ask you to pay for my joyride. Got it? Anyone have any questions? And my business partner, Jen, just walked in, so she could tell you, too. My microphone broke. Earthy was like, Jordan, we don't have the money to support your travel needs.
Oh, Earthy.
You have to talk loud because there's no microphone.
Like none at all?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish I had a chair.
Here, sit.
What a gent. Earthy, I really wasn't paying that much attention with what he just said, but I will say that we don't expect anyone who doesn't have the money to support the GoFundMe. All we ask is that if you share it, just share it once a day on one of your platforms. Yeah, I did park. I kind of cheated parallel parks, but I'm proud of myself.
No, what he's thinking is our whole business strategy is just to ask people to donate. No. That's not our business strategy at all. So every business, when it gets started, needs, seed money, needs money to get going. Just like anyone would need that to get going in their personal lives. For business, you have to have seed money. Are we only going out if we get 50,000? No, we'll go out. If there's a story, we'll do whatever we have to do to get out and cover it. But the point is, this is, Jordan, go away, I know how to talk. This is just money to give us a boost. This is just money. It takes money to make money, so it's going to help us with marketing. It's going to help us get out in the field, which will help us get more viewers. This is definitely not our long-term business plan, because a GoFundMe is not a business plan. It is part of our plan to be held accountable to the people, that's you, and to really get this going the right way. So, Raven says, are we only planning on, yes, Boofire, I tell him all the time. Are we only planning on doing something where people can become members? No, absolutely not. We will always have options available where you can just go on our
page, statusquo.com. It will launch soon. And you can watch all the free content you want there. The premium stuff, we're still kind of figuring out, and there's some really exciting stuff in there, but it's not necessary. There are other outlets out there that have a similar business model where you get the majority of their content for free, maybe with some ads and stuff, and then otherwise you pay for a membership. It's a proven business model. It holds us accountable to you. We don't want to take corporate cash. Yeah, that's it. And by the way, guys, can you guess what exciting thing is going to happen tomorrow? Anyone have any guesses? There's a very exciting event tomorrow. Super exciting. No guesses? I don't know. I'll give you a hint. It's someone's birthday. No, telethon, actually, Boofire, you are right, because we are going to be doing a birthday telethon. Birthday boy! Jordan is the birthday boy tomorrow. I know, I already said that. Jordan's birthday.
It's my birthday, and I'll GoFundMe if I want to.
I definitely told him to not use that slogan, so erase that from your minds. We're going to be having a telethon tomorrow, which is really, it's going to be way more exciting than it sounds. So Jordan is going to be 32 years old. So what we're going to do, and I can't remember exactly what we decided to call it, but it's something like 32 stories they kept from you. So 32 stories that have gone uncovered that you need to know about. And yeah, of course, we're going to talk about the GoFundMe too. That's not a secret. But there's going to be a lot in it for you. It's going to be really exciting and very cool.
What time is this at?
Pokemon GoFundMe. Oh, Pokemon go to the polls. Pokemon go to the GoFundMe. Jordan's infant pictures. I don't know if he has any here, but we are going to his brother's, so perhaps there will be some to be found. I don't know if John has any baby pictures here. No, apparently not. I can GoFundMe if I want to. Yeah, so Jordan, are you going to wrap this up, or are you just chilling over there?
I got more stories.
Oh, okay. All right, bye guys. Be proud of me that I parked.
And by the way, as a reminder, for those who fund the GoFundMe at $100, you get either a hat or a shirt. And we're going to be also ordering hats with the actual coloring in the Status Quo logo, which is pretty badass. Have you seen the Status Quo logo yet? There you go. So if you do 127, you get a hat and a shirt. If you do 100, you get one or the other. So very, very exciting things. The hat, very comfortable. I think very fashionable. So we'll see. Now, did that answer your question, Earthy, about our business model? Our business model isn't doing GoFundMe till the end of time. It's to get out in the field. Because let me tell you, one of the worst things for a journalist when you're in the field is to basically be there for 2 or 3 days and then be like, oh, wow, I'm just getting started. I need time. I think there's a story here. Let me dig in. And then it's like, oh, shit, we have no more money, so we have to leave. We want to have enough funding so that we go places and actually dig in our heels and start exposing some things. So that's why. Thank you, Metho Nelson, $10 in the super chat. So, from our story and what we're trying to do for Status Quo, I wanted to cover one last thing today, which is getting very little attention because the corporate media doesn't want to remind you that it helped cover up one of the greatest atrocities, I think, in modern history. And that would be the global financial crash, brought to you by the big banks, the government officials who have been bought off by those big banks, and many other people over the years, including Bill Clinton, who basically, because he signed Glass-Steagall repeal, which allowed banks to merge, investment banks to merge with commercial banks, that was the beginning of the wrecking ball that allowed the financial disaster that I keep hearing people have recovered from. Let me ask you before I cover this story, can you leave in the chat whether it's Facebook or the super chat? Have you recovered from the global financial crash? I'm taking a little poll here. Have you recovered? I don't know. because most people I talk to haven't recovered. Most people I talk to are living paycheck to paycheck. Most people I'm talking had their lifetime savings and retirement almost totally erased. Mike, no. I'm sure I'm sure when I go out, if I started talking to more people, you'd actually get the truth. So it's the 10-year anniversary of the global financial disaster, brought to you by the fact that the big banks played blackjack with your money. Nobody was held accountable. Patron Saint Barack Obama didn't jail one banker. He didn't put tougher regulations on banks. You want to say Dodd-Frank was tougher regulation? It was a Band-Aid to a gunshot wound. So, Matt Taibbi has this great story debunking the propaganda that the corporate media has put out. I want to read part of that. Matt Taibbi has done so much great reporting on what actually led to the financial crash, what actually led to the banks needing to be, quote, bailed out, and actually debunking the fact that we had to bail them out. So I want to read you part of his story, give you my thoughts too. Here we go. In the early days of the crash, reporters were told the crisis particulars were probably too complex for the news audience, but metaphors would do, and the operating metaphor for 2008 was a 1,000-year flood, a rare and inexplicable accident, something that just sort of happened. You know, it's like, yeah, I got her pregnant. It just happened. I don't know what I could have done to get her pregnant. She just got pregnant. It was even implied that the meltdown was due in part to irrational panic, hysteria, a fear of fear itself. When Lehman Brothers failed, the theory held, investors overreacted by freezing all lending, causing more disruption and more losses. The economy was basically healthy, but fear had caused it to founder on a lack of confidence. In Too Big to Fail, William Hurt plays Treasury Secretary Paulson as a saddened, wearied Atlas. He quips early in the mess, this is a confidence game, and if Lehman Brothers failed, all the other banks are going to drop like dominoes. I'm going to skip around a little bit. This colorful language, dominoes, a confidence game, an iceberg, a storm, artfully disguised reality. This wasn't weather coming at them, but the consequences of years of untrammeled criminal fraud. That's what this was, fraud. Banks like Lehman had lent billions to fly-by-night mortgage mills like Countrywide and New Century. Those firms in turn sent hordes of loan hustlers into lower-income neighborhoods offering magical deals to anyone who could fog a mirror, as former Countrywide executive Michael Winston once put it to me. The targets were frequently minorities and the elderly. So he makes a great point, which doesn't get talked about a lot. The main victims of the financial crash, of course, white people were victims too, but African Americans and Latinos were the predominant victims of these crappy mortgages that all the banks knew they shouldn't have been handing out, that the government, the politicians knew this was going on. They just looked the other way because the banks kept filling their coffers. That's what they do. They don't care. The politicians don't care if the banks bring down the economy. They don't care if their constituents are left losing their homes, losing their retirements. I've met people that literally were without food because of this. So the media put out, like Matt Taibbi says, it was a perfect storm, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It was an accident. Who could have thought? Who would have thought? Well, if you watched certain films, including The Big Short, there were plenty of people sounding the alarm that these banks are basically preying on minorities. They are preying on brown people. They are preying on poor white people, essentially, so that they could have another Gilded Age. That's called criminal fraud. So we're very focused as a media on Russian trolls. We're very focused on espionage and taking down, Russians interfering with our election. But we're not as focused on actual crimes. Crimes have a definition. These were crimes. This was criminal fraud. We're not worried about that. You want to know why? You ever watch Morning Joe? I do sometimes to torture myself. Well, they have advertisements from Bank of America. Vox, a digital website, brought to you, their podcast, brought to you by Goldman Sachs. right? All of these news outlets get sponsorship dollars from banks. Politico does an event series sponsored to you by Bank of America. There are ads on many things I see from JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The media is literally in bed with these banks. And by the way, you have outlets like CNBC, you have outlets like MSNBC. MSNBC is an anchor in the morning who used to be a Wall Street reporter, who thinks business could do no wrong, who thinks the banks have been wrongfully attacked. We have a media of elites that are covering up the greatest heist, the greatest bank robbery, possibly in American history, actually in world history, what these banks were able to get away with. But we're arresting black people down in Dallas right now who protested against Botham Jean, a 26-year-old black man who was hanging out in his apartment one night, and a white police officer randomly intruded on his apartment and shot him dead. Did you know that nine people who were out at a protest against the fact that this police officer is not in jail until trial, 9 of them were in jail? I think they're still in jail, actually, for 24, 48 hours. Yet criminal bank CEOs, criminal loan sharks, criminal bankers, they were fined. Slap on the wrist. Slap on the wrist. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable what the corporate media and the propaganda that gets out there. And you're not going to see any of it this week. Again, 10-year anniversary. So every year on 9/11, rightfully so, we pay tribute and we honor the victims. But no, global financial crash. Oh, that happened 10 years ago? Well, you know, back to Trump. And don't get me wrong, I think the Kavanaugh scandal and the accusation against him should get a lot of coverage, but I'm not here. Jen, are you hearing much about this being the 10-year anniversary of the global financial crash?
No, really, only you mentioned it, and some on Twitter.
Yeah. Go figure. Go figure. And by the way, going back to our GoFundMe, like you saw on the Young Turks, I'm going to be doing disappearing middle class tours also, where we're going to be going out all across America and interviewing, shocker, guess who? Real people about their struggles. And many of those people, their struggles, not that they didn't have struggles before the bank crash, but their struggles went from 0 to 60 because of the global financial crash brought to you by these banks. So I want to read you one more part of Taibbi's piece. Here's the link, by the way. I'll put it in the live chat if you want to read it. I love Matt Taibbi. I don't really respect that many journalists. He's one of them. Let me read to you one more part of this because it's really instructive, and I actually learned quite a bit from reading this piece. It's kind of long, so definitely do it when you have some time. If I could find it. Holy cow, this is long. All right. So, myth number 3, he writes. The bailouts were about saving capitalism. The deal those bankers cooked up was to save the banks from capitalism. Losers must be allowed to lose, Taibbi writes. It's the first and most important regulatory mechanism in a market economy. But by 2008, the banks had simply grown too big and interconnected to allow normal market processes to take place. These firms almost certainly would have died without help. In 2011, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission released a report quoting then Fed Chief Ben Bernanke as saying this about the fateful week in September 2008. Out of maybe the 13 of the most important financial institutions in the United States, 12 were at risk of failure within a period of a week or two. Again, the legend is that the banks at the Fed that weekend were the healthy ones, saving us from the contagion of AIG and Lehman. This legend has been reinforced by constant propaganda about the big banks being forced to accept bailouts like TARP. It's a lie. Paulson and other regulators repeatedly intervened to prevent the natural demise of these firms. It wasn't just small market stopping moves like when they banned short selling to protect corrupt companies from smaller gamblers who'd wagered on their failure, or the deal made on September 19, 2008, when 2 companies that were not commercial banks Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley were given emergency commercial bank charters on a Sunday night, allowing the two plummeting giants access to life-saving Fed cash the next morning. The public, to this day, has no understanding of the scale of the intervention. To put it in perspective, the war on terror has cost America about $5.6 trillion since 9/11, or about $32 million an hour. So, Jeff Bezos makes $64,000 every 10 seconds. He makes $266 million a day, $32 million an hour. So we could be an endless war in Iraq, Afghanistan. The bailouts probably dwarf that effort. Most studies suggest it was a World War level mobilization of cash, a generation of savings used to plug a single hole. The Special Inspector General of the TARP put the gross government outlay at $4.6 trillion, with over $16 trillion in guarantees. Bloomberg concluded the rescue expenditure was $12.8 trillion. Fortune, which saluted the investment as hugely profitable for America in the end, put the number at $14 trillion. The Levy Institute at Bard College did probably the most extensive study and put the number at $29 trillion. Hey, I think we could pay for some healthcare with $29 trillion. I think we could pay for some education with $29 trillion. I think we could fix the roads with 29 children. I think we could give preschoolers pre-K. I think we can do a lot of things with $29 trillion. What do you think? Can we do some stuff with $29 trillion? I'm not as eloquent or informed as Matt Taibbi, but really what happened here would be the equivalent of me going into a bank, shooting a gun, stealing money, and then instead of arresting me, instead of letting me to rot in prison, probably shooting a gun, theft, kidnapping, possibly some kidnapping in there, you're talking 25 to 30. Instead of that, they would basically, this is the equivalent of them walking me to a massage parlor, making sure I was pampered, get a nice day spa, then take me into a hearing, say some verbal, condemn me verbally, and then fine me for shooting my gun, terrorizing people, and stealing their money. Oh, and letting me keep the money. And then not only letting me keep the money, but giving me a profit on top of it. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is the greatest theft. This is the greatest bank robbery in American and world history. And by the way, there's no telling it's not going to happen again. I'm not an economist, but there's several other bubbles out there. There is the fracking bubble. There is the student loan bubble, which is very close to popping. $6 trillion in Iraq, $29 trillion for the banks. I thought we have no money for healthcare. I thought we have no money for education. If you haven't noticed yet, folks, America is not the United States of America. It's the United Corporations of America. And essentially, what the legacy of the bailouts and the government basically, that's not even corporate welfare. That is corporate welfare on steroids, what they did to these banks, is basically making it so capitalism, which already is BS, we don't actually even live in a capitalist economy, it basically made it so as private enterprise, people and companies could do whatever the hell they want, and if they fail, there is no risk of going out of business. There is no risk of criminal consequences if you do illegal things. That is the legacy of the global financial crash. The banks know they can do whatever they want. They can defraud their customers. They can prey on minorities and vulnerable people without the expertise to know that they are purchasing toxic, whether it's toxic housing loans or other financial instruments. That's not a free market, that's a vulture market. And that is why we need to move to a socialist economy. Socialism doesn't mean you can't make money. It means there are regulations and there are safeguards in for the citizens. Sounds good to me. With that, I am going to wrap up this live stream. Again, tomorrow is my birthday. If you want to give me a present, the GoFundMe link is right there in the description of this video. Cannot thank you enough to all the people. I think over 50 people now have contributed, and we're at like 3,700, I believe. Could be wrong. So we're close to 4,000, trying to get to 5,000 this week, so it's definitely a stretch, but we're trying to do it. I can't thank you guys enough because I understand that everyone nobody watching is probably, super wealthy. So thank you for the contributions. Again, this GoFundMe is not our business plan. This is to give us a little bit of a spark plug, a little bit of a catalyst to get out in the field so that we could start our business. So at 12 o'clock, I'll be 32. If you want to give me a birthday gift, GoFundMe.com/status, GoFundMe.com/status-coup-news. I will be live tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm going to go a little longer tomorrow. And if you can't contribute, as always, share. Sharing is caring. Odo Jihad, I don't know what that name is. 3 mil is not enough? Hey, if you want to contribute 3 mil, that's fine with me. I want to know where your money's coming from. Because if you're a Democratic Party establishment person asking for favors, I don't want your money. Thank you for watching. Peace.